Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sports Legends of the Carolinas. I'm your host, Scott Fowler, sports columnist for the Charlotte Observer. I've been a journalist in the region for 3 decades, and in this podcast, I seek out some of my very favorite sports legends from the Carolinas to hear about their journeys to becoming icons.
Here's Muggsy Bogues. It's tied up. 100.
Our first guest became a household name with the Charlotte Hornets, but Muggsy Bogues was known throughout the Carolinas well before he became the shortest player ever in the NBA.
You know, once I got to Charlotte, I knew where I was headed to in terms of Carolina because I knew it was a collegiate-driven type of state, but I didn't know about the professional aspects of it.
At only 5'3", Muggsy starred at Wake Forest, became the 12th overall pick of the 1987 NBA draft, and then had a remarkable 14-year career in the NBA. He still lives in the Charlotte area today.
Muggsy Bogues corrals the loose ball.
It was special back then. You know, Charlotte was very special. We had so much support, not only just local, it was a regional type of support.
In our conversation, I learned about how he got his famous nickname, what it felt like during those early days for the Charlotte Hornets, and why he still has pellets in his right bicep from a double-barreled shotgun.
Everybody called me Muggsy.
Your kids, too?
Well, my kids called me Dad.
Okay.
Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast wherever you're listening, and to consider a digital subscription to the Charlotte Observer. Muggsy Bogues, next on Sports Legends of the Carolinas.
Muggsy, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, buddy. Appreciate you.
There's so much to get to here, including a new autobiography you've written that I've just finished, and it is fantastic. But before we do that, Muggsy, let's start with this. In researching for this interview, I came across what I thought was an amazing stat. Because in the NBA at 5'3", you blocked 39. Yes, 39 shots. And one of them was a shot by 7-foot New York Knicks center Patrick Ewing. So how did that ever happen?
Well, I did have a 44-inch vertical that I can get up a little bit off the floor. But I would just say at the right place at the right time. You know, Patrick just happened to put the ball behind his head. He liked to fade away, and I just happened to be able to time it perfectly and get my hands on it. And then right after that, I let him know he was going to be part of my highlight film. I had to let him know that. I had to let him know he was going to be part of the highlight film. But seriously, out of those 39 blocks, a lot of them came below the waist. You know, as people go up, you can knock the ball down, and sometimes they count it as a steal or they count it as a block. So I got a lot of blocks in that regards.
A 44-inch vertical. So I knew it was high. I didn't know it was that high. Could you dunk ever? Were you ever able to do that?
Yeah, I was able to dunk the basketball. I just never dunked in a game. Messing around, you know, in practice, your ball come off, you tip it in. I could easily grab a volleyball and palm it and just go up there and dunk it. But for basketball, I had to time it and get it up because I couldn't kind of control it
With
my hands.
With palming it, yeah. So I mentioned the book, and it is really so good, Muggsy, and congrats on its publication. It brings back so many memories for the reader, and I'm sure for you too. And it's called Muggsy, My Life from a Kid in the Projects to the Godfather of Small Ball. So what prompted you to write it?
Well, just the second go round for me. You know, my first book I did was in Atlanta Giants, and it was in 94. Oh, gosh, I'm aging myself. But it was the beginning of my career. My pops and one of my best friends had just passed away. And when they came and approached me to do it, you know, I was all in agreement to do it. But this time around, it's more substance. I think I had a lot more opportunity to kind of live a little, but it's more of a beyond just a basketball book. You know, it's about, you know, someone having a passion and you chasing it each and every day. It's about relationships. Me and my wife, you know, we rekindle after being divorced for 10 years, giving back to the community, the impact that you had on some of your teammates, and just a heartfelt story, I believe. And I felt that it was time for not only just the kids, but a lot of folks in general could get a lot from this book in terms of just, as I say, finding things that they kind of relate to, and especially with chasing a passion and doing it and chasing it each and every day.
Exactly. And you write very evocatively about Baltimore and the housing projects you grew up in. There's a lot of amazing stories in there. One of them I did not know, and I wonder if you don't mind telling it, is just that you were shot literally at age 5. How did that happen?
Yeah, that kind of shocked a lot of folks when I tell them that, being at the wrong place at the wrong time. But anybody understood our neighborhood. You know, it was a challenge not only for me to be breaking down barriers of playing on the basketball court, but just basically just going outside your door. Outside our apartment, fight had broken out. Kids took a rock and broke one of the store owner's window. He came running out the store, went straight to his shed and grabbed his double-barrel shotgun and just started shooting through the neighborhood. Fortunate enough for me, the bullet missed my head, but unfortunate, the buckshot hit my legs and went all through my arms. Still have one in my arm today that kind of keep me of a reminders.
Wow, I see it on your right bicep there.
Yeah, right on my bicep. That's one that's still in my arm today. So that was, that was the way we lived, and the way we grew up. Anything can happen at any given moment. So you got to be, looking over your shoulder at every given time.
You write a lot about the people who helped you the most. And I just wonder, at that time in your life, as you grew up, who were the most important people in your life that really helped you out of a difficult situation?
Well, of course, my mom and dad, they was the most influential person in my life in terms of being my heroes, in terms of, being the backbone of our families and providing. But then, I had a blessing that came along. His name was Mr. Leon Howard. And Mr. Howard was the one that taught me the game of basketball, instilled the knowledge in me for a small guard to be able to overcome all the adversities and to be able to climb the ladder, each level, to believe that a guy of my size is capable of playing on any level with the skill set that I obtained. And him instilling that, and not only for me, the Reggie Williams of the world, he gave us vision where we didn't think it existed. And that's something that as a kid, you kind of gravitate towards and believe that anything is possible, and having a craft to focus on a means of being able to help you stay positive in a way where you look at not only with the situation that you're in now, but you could look beyond and have a vision that it could be much better. And for him to instill that in us, that was something that we'll never forget.
He was the director of the recreation center that was more or less across the street, or very close.
It was in our neighborhood, the recreation center. Recreation center played a big role back then in a lot of youth kids' lives because it was a safe haven place. It was a place where we can go and just be a kid, and then have to worry about anything that's going on negatively that's outside of those doors. And having that facility and those type of resources allow me to grow, allow me to be able to, dream and visualize that anything is possible.
This time of your life when you were growing up in Baltimore, that's where your nickname Muggsy came from. I think a lot of people don't even realize your first name is really Tyrone.
Yeah, that is true, Scott. That is so true. My mama named me Tyrone Curtis Bogues. And of course, Muggsy has been in the national spotlight for quite some time, and people just believe that my name is Muggsy. It all came when I was 7 years old, growing up in the inner city. And again, a lot of kids, when I used to go play on the basketball court, they used to make fun of me because of my size. 7 years old, one day I was out there playing, but they still didn't pick me. So I got a little creative, and I got 2 milk crates, and I cut the bottom out of each milk crate, and I tied it on each end of the fence. And I gathered a couple little kids and tried to play with me, and we would have some of the best milk crate basketball games going on. And then, but on the bigger court, one of the kids had to leave, and one of the other kids hollered, "Hey, you little shrimp, you want to play?" So of course they was talking to me. So that opportunity presented itself, and I went over there and played with the bigger kids. And the first time he put the ball on the ground, I stole it from him and laid it up. Second time he did it, I stole it from him again. Then he tried to get a little more aggressive because he thought it was a fluke. And I faked him one way, went around and stole it from him, gave it to my teammate. And then his team, one of his players, teammates holler, "Man, stop. Let's stop. This kid is out here mugging you. He is just mugging you each and every time you put the ball on the floor." and at the same time, a show used to come on every Saturday called the Bowery Boys. And one of the kids' characters' name was Muggsy. He was the smallest of the group. So he tied that character, the way I played the game, and I've been Muggsy ever since I've been 7 years old.
Does everyone call you Muggsy?
Everybody called me Muggsy.
Your kids too?
Well, my kids called me Dad.
Okay.
But the only person that never called me Muggsy was my mom. She always called me Ty. But other than that, everybody else called me Muggsy.
Muggsy. Wow. Now let me make sure I remember this correctly. Your mom was 4'11".
Yes.
And your dad was 5'5".
Dad was 5'5".
So you probably weren't surprised to end up at 5'3".
No,
right? When
no.
did you stop growing?
Oh, shucks. I think I stopped growing right around my 9th grade year, 9th or 10th grade year. I was 5'3" from that moment on, and I never grew from my 9th and 10th grade. I knew I wasn't going to get much taller. You know, we were the 5-foot family, as I call us.
We'll be back right after this. Welcome back.
You played for an extraordinary high school team. So describe, who it was and who was with you and what made it so special.
Oh, yeah. That high school team, growing up in the city, Dunbar High School team, I should say, that, as you alluded to, they said that it was probably one of the best high school teams that ever been assembled. They had myself on it, the late Reggie Lewis, who played for the Boston Celtics, David Wingate, who played 15 years in the NBA, as well as Reggie Williams. Yes, Reggie Williams. Then the three of us, myself, Reggie Williams, and the late Reggie Lewis, you know, we was blessed to get drafted in the same draft in 1987 in the first round. We had so much talent on the high school team. Not only did we had 4 NBA players, we could have had more. 15 of those kids had Division I scholarships, and that's something that's unheard of. But they all give credit to Coach Wade, because Coach Wade, he was the leader of that bunch, and he understood who we were. He was very empathetic, and he knew what made us tick, where we came from. He knew how much talent we had on that team, so he made everybody accountable. We checked our egos for that door. He was a former NFL player who played professionally, and he was very highly on character. So we understood how to conduct ourselves in terms of on and off the court, and that was something that was very special.
One of the great nicknames in sports, too, the Dunbar Poets.
The
right?
Dunbar Poets.
Named after a poet originally.
That is true.
Yeah. And isn't it true that Reggie Lewis, that team was so talented, Reggie Lewis, the number 22 overall pick in 1987, after Reggie Williams went 4 and you went 12, he was the 6th man for that team some of the time?
Yeah, believe it or not, Reggie was our 6th man. He never started for us. He could have easily started, but him and Reggie mirrored one another. And I think Coach Wade understood what he had, and everybody don't realize how to maneuver all that talent. But when you have a conductor who understands it and knowing how to put those pieces and knowing how to make them operate, that's exactly what he did. He made Reg that first guy off the bench, and Reg came in and he uplifted our offense. And he uplifted not only just the offense, but the team within itself because of his skill set and because of him and Reg. And we was able to manage that for 2 seasons and go 59-0, and which was unheard of.
How heavily recruited were you?
I was heavily recruited, and also the way I used my recruitment was a lot of the coaches, a lot of college coaches used to come and watch our practice, as opposed to going to the games, because we used to blow everybody out. So they felt like it was more competitive watching us compete in practice. And I always felt like if they come and watching somebody else, I want to make sure they talk about me leaving. And that was a means of me building my stock up. I had the likes of Seton Hall, Virginia, Boston University, Wake Forest, of course. Georgetown just was slightly interested in me because he didn't go real heavy after me because he had Michael Jackson at the time. And Reggie and David was there. But my decision, I think I made the right decision. By going to Wake Forest. I think it was a match made in heaven for me in terms of the challenges on and off the court. And not only that, it was the best conference in the nation.
Absolutely. Still is today, I think.
Yes, yeah. Absolutely.
Look at the starting lineup. Wake Forest, the human assist. Tyrone Muggsy Bogues, the sophomore from Baltimore, will start at the point.
When Bogues is in the game, he's so quick, he handles the ball so well, it makes it very difficult double teaming because he can beat it and get easy shots down at the other end.
What was your very favorite game you ever played at Wake Forest?
Oh, my very favorite game at Wake Forest. I think I had quite a few, but the one that stood out the most that put me on a national stage was that my sophomore year playing against North Carolina State, and we played against the Spud Webbs and Nate McMillan, and Al McGuire actually was calling that game. And Mr. McGuire, the late Ed McGuire, he was all in all about the things that I was doing on the basketball court. I had 20 points, 10 assists, and right after that game, he was talking about this kid need to be in the Hall of Fame, not even knowing that if I go to the NBA or not. He was talking about from this game alone, he should be in the Hall of Fame. And talking about the impact that he having on his game is beyond the impact that a Patrick Ewing and a Ralph Sampson may have. This guy is 5'3", taking over, so I never forget the comments that he made towards me during that game. So that probably one of the most exciting games that stands out.
That's interesting you say that. You and I are the same age. We're both 57 now. And so I was watching that game, I guess maybe in my dorm, but I do remember that very distinctly. Speaking about you as if you were a basketball god, a 5'3" god. And then you became one of my favorite players. And of course, we'll get into the Charlotte Hornet days as well. But I do want to ask you, when you were drafted 12, which is an enormous accomplishment, one of the first things you have written about and talked about before is you bought your mom a house. And I just wonder what it felt like when you took those keys and were able to hand those to her.
Oh, it was no other feeling like it. I mean, it was no other feeling like it. You've been dreaming it for so long, to get to that point one day, to be able to provide that type of, luxury to your mom and having that opportunity to do it. I mean, it was a surreal moment. I mean, being able to see the expression on her face and the joy, not only for her, but for my siblings. And that was just a moment that, again, you never forget. And I was so happy that I was able to do that.
And so then you went to Washington, but that first year really didn't work out well for you.
It didn't work out well for me, but it was needed. It was needed for me in terms of my growth of the NBA. And I'm so thankful for the Washington Bullets because, again, being able to get drafted, being able to shake Commissioner Stern's hand and put that hat on that day, the weight of the world was lifted off their shoulders. And here it is, you had an opportunity now to change the whole trajectory of your family. But it didn't go well the first year on the court. But in the way that adversity needed to happen, I was mentored by the late Moses Malone. Moses taught me so much about how to conduct yourself, how to be a pro, how to, stay positive even though when the business is not going well, and meeting the likes of the late Manute Bowe, who became very close to me. And he and I had so many great stories together. I mean, one of them, back then, all teams didn't have private planes where we used to fly commercial and we had to go to the airport. They only had 8 first-class seats. And Manute and I was the youngest, so we was the 2 that had to go sit and coach. And, of course, he's 7'6", so you can imagine the knees up to his chest. And he's sitting back there trying to tell me stories about how he killed lions with a spear. And I'm laughing and just asking him what type of lions were there, lions with no teeth in their mouth. So we just had so much fun. I miss him dearly. He was such a great guy to play with.
And there's some famous pictures of the two of you. And you'd sound like you loved Manute. And most people, I think, loved Manute that knew him. But you also write in the book, I think, that you felt the Washington occasionally used that as a gimmick.
I think they did. I think they started to try to use me and Manute as a novelty act because of the height differential. But luckily for Manute and I, we was comfortable in our own skin. And they was trying to, I guess, draw more fans. And once the season was over, it was time to move on. My agent, David Falk, had called me and told me about the ugly head of the NBA business that I was being, non-protected to the Charlotte Hornets, that I was going to be part of the expansion team. And, of course, I was devastated. At the time, I was kind of pissed. But, once I got to Charlotte, I knew where I was headed to in terms of Carolina by just leaving, Wake Forest. So but I didn't know about the professional aspects of it because I knew it was a collegiate-driven type of state. But professionally, I didn't know what we was walking into. But again, that was another match made in heaven, being able to come here and team up with the guys that we was able to team up with. And, of course, the special night that we had, losing by 40 in the stand, the crowd just giving us a stand ovation.
The opening night, people in tuxedos and ball gowns, and
yes,
they didn't even care that y'all lost by 40.
And that was a special moment.
Love to see the Charlotte Hornets. This is the most enthusiastic crowd in the NBA. They lead the league in attendance. It is a great place to play basketball.
We'll be back right after this. Welcome back.
Muggsy Bogues scoring.
So, to go back for a second, I was doing an interview with George Shinn not long ago. It was his 80th birthday, the Charlotte Hornets' original owner. And I'll read you the quote he said about you. He said, "I was accused of being instrumental in all our draft picks, but Muggsy was the only one where I really was. I said, look, this guy's a lot like me. He's little. Most people count him out, say he can't do it, but he did it. I wanted Muggsy on our team. To this day, I love Muggsy. And I told him once, you're my all-time best player and my most valuable player because you sold more tickets than anybody." So what is your relationship like? What was it like then? And then he eventually traded you. And
George and I mean, we got a great relationship, just to start off by that. But it was rocky, especially after I got traded. But before I got traded, I mean, it was awesome. I mean, Dell and I was like his second kids, you should say. He had us everywhere. And of course, promises was made to us that we'll be part of the organization, even after our basketball career. But the ugly head of the NBA always shows itself. I got traded. Things, didn't go as well as we expected. He and I lost contact with each other for quite some time. But then we reconnected when they did a magazine.
like the 25-year anniversary.
They did
or
a
something.
25-year anniversary, and he and I was part of that. And we had the opportunity to talk and rekindle our relationship. And I love the guy. Have that journey with each other during that time. Because it was special back then. Charlotte was very special. We had so much support, not only just local, it was a regional type of support. And it became that. And George was the reason behind that. So
I think every Charlotte Hornet fan wishes they had kept the band together, so to speak. The glory days really were you on the fast break with maybe Larry on one side, Larry Johnson, and Zoe, Alonzo, Mourning on the other. What was it like playing in front of 24,000 people night after night with that group?
Oh, man, it was so special. People don't understand how special that was because that was true, our sixth man. They got us through so many games with that cheer and that joy and that spirit, the culture that was created. And of course, having that talent around me, I should say, made it a lot easier to get up and go to work each and every day. You mentioned the Larry Johnson, the Alonzo, Mourning, Steph Curry. We had the Kendall Gills at one point. Those guys. Rex Chapman at one time was here. We just had some great players and unbelievable times where we could have done something special if we all would have kept that band together. But again, things happen that
I think every Charlotte Hornet fan wishes they had kept the band together, so to speak. The glory days really were you on the fast break with Larry on one side, Larry Johnson,
right?
and is that what you're referring to?
Yeah,
Alonzo
Zoe was
Mourning
the
on
first
other.
domino. He was the first one. And when that happened, and he was a key part because he was a franchise center that was desperately needed in a lot of franchises. And being able to lose him to Miami was very heartbroken. But, we had to move on. And then the next piece came was Larry. And then after Larry, then it was me. And then
you were the last man standing.
Yeah, I was the last man. Dell was the last man standing.
Yeah, he stayed.
So he stayed one more year after me, and then he moved on. But again, we had a good run. I wish we could have lasted a little longer than it had, because I think we could have done something special.
You write in the book, you think you left a lot of alley-oop lobs on the table and a lot of wins too, right?
A lot of alley-oop lobs on the table as well as a lot of wins. I mean, and we just wanted that opportunity, to see what we can do collectively.
You were, we talked about the nickname Muggsy, and you have an enormous number of steals. What was that for maybe young players who are listening to this? A lot of people would love to steal a basketball. What was your secret doing that?
Well, for me, by being small, understanding that and embraced it, being close to that ball, the way I played defensively, nose on the ball, I timed it. I used to time it a lot. Once the ball started going down, there's no way you can stop it. So being able to shoot the gaps in those regards and those opportunities allowed me, to keep my opponent on their heels. And that was something that I felt like I was good at.
Shaquille O'Neal, I think, says in the NBA documentary that's been done on you that's really tremendous, that he's never said that before, but Muggsy scared him to death. He was terrified of putting the ball down.
And that was the support I always gave my big guys. We complimented each other. And, and being able to have that impact on the floor, it allowed me to be, the guy that I was.
I didn't realize until reading the book that you were there when Latrell Sprewell choked PJ Carlesimo in Golden State. Right?
Yeah, I just got traded. Actually, I was there for about a week after leaving Charlotte. We just lost to the Lakers that day quite soundly, and we got back to practice. And PJ was, monitoring everybody, and he was walking, pacing around. He happened to look at Spree and I, and just for whatever reason came down and said, "Spree, put something on and pass to Muggsy." And we looked at like, "Oh, I don't know what are you talking about?" So, we kept doing our rapid fire drill. And then he came back and looked at Spree and approached him again and said, I say put something on the pass to Muggsy. And at that point, I'm understanding that it was a lot of stuff building up previous before I even got there. And Spree just had the ball in his hand and just, you could see it building. And before he was going to pass it to me, he just slammed like, it. I'm sorry, excuse my French. And he would just address me, I'm tired of, you dressing me and Muggs ain't saying nothing and blah, blah, blah. And I think PJ may say, get the F out of the practice. And he grabbed his neck, and then that's where everything kind of transpired.
Wow.
Then and there. But it was kind of crazy to me.
I bet you were like, what have I just gotten myself into?
Yeah, I'm leaving a place where it was pretty much quiet my whole 9 years there. And then all of a sudden now you're in a city where all of a sudden you're dealing with issues that have nothing to do with the game of basketball.
To close this chapter out, but you played after Golden State, you actually, rekindling is kind of a theme of your life. And one of these is with Dell Curry. You ended up in Toronto, playing for the Raptors a little while. But let's talk about Steph and Seth Curry for a second, because you actually played airplane with them, twirling them around in the Charlotte Carlesimo, right? What was that like? And could you ever have imagined you were twirling around a two-time NBA MVP?
That's mind-boggling to me right now, even thinking about it. Just seeing Seth and Steph, what they're doing in the NBA. I mean, it's remarkable. I mean, it's a testimony to Sonya and Dell and their upbringing and the impact that they had on their kids. No one seen it. No one saw it coming in terms of them being young, them being fragile, small, skinny. But they always been around the game. They always loved the game. They always gravitated towards it. And we talking about Steph now, considered the best shooter that ever even laced up some shoes. And being a two-time MVP, three-time champion. I mean, it just hard to even fathom that was the kid I was giving that little airplane ride around in the locker room. But it's a joy, and I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to be a part of, to see it and to witness it. Two amazing kids. They're fathers now. They have their own family that now that they trying to instill those principles and values that their parents put in them. So, I mean, it's full circle. So I'm just happy to witness it all.
And so Seth and your son Ty were in each other's weddings, I believe you're right. And wasn't Brittany sort of her first little boyfriend was Steph Curry, the Brittany, your daughter?
Yeah,
right?
Steph said that.
Steph said that. That's right.
Yeah,
yes.
Steph said that his first crush was Brittany. But, we always close. The kids were close. And, when they kids, they don't know no better. They just around one another and they enjoy each other. And that's the beauty of it. Being able to support one another, to be able to now still be able to be there for each other. We're just grateful. I'm just thankful and blessed.
It's Saturday Night Live.
Now, Muggsy, you have something to say to Charles.
Okay. It's just, I know how badly you wanted to beat the Bulls.
Look at Charles. Look at him. Muggsy, look at Charles. Go on, Muggsy.
And I love you.
So Muggsy, you have dabbled in movies a number of times over your career and national commercials. You've done a cameo on SNL. But the most famous role I think you're known for, correct me if I'm wrong, is Space Jam. And that was funny that I never knew that Tim Hardaway almost replaced you, right? your character because of an injury situation. But tell us about the filming of that and then sort of how the cameramen got around it because of your situation at the time.
Yeah, that was kind of a unique situation. I just had surgery. We just lost to the Chicago Bulls in the playoff, and my knee wasn't right. So I had surgery right afterwards, and they was about to shoot Space Jam. And when my agent, David Falk, we all had the same age, myself, Michael Jordan, and Patrick Ewing, when I guess Warner Brothers had conducted an opportunity for us to be part of this now iconic movie that's called Space Jam. I didn't know if I could participate or not. And when I got out there, of course, they created a situation where I didn't have to walk. In some of the scenes, I was pulled on the dolly where my shoulder was walking, act like I was, walking myself. And the time where we had to get up and walk to to touch the ball, you can kind of see me really egregiously limping, trying to get there. But it was an opportunity that I couldn't pass up, and I was so grateful and thankful that they decided to use me part of the movie because it's, again, one of the most iconic movies I think that ever been put out.
At least you guys are still tall. I'm nothing now. Just another short guy.
You got that right. It's the only thing you got right.
An odd story. I can't even believe it happened. I got to Charlotte in 1994. You were an established star by then. You were on a 10-story mural, I remember. But in 1991, you actually played one game for the minor league Gastonia Rangers, as did Dell. I can't believe that would happen today with two NBA stars, but what was that experience like?
Ooh, that was so much fun. Boy, we had a blast. And Dell, keep in mind, he was a former pitcher. He even got drafted, I believe. But when they came and asked us, people didn't realize, I played baseball. I was an all-around sportsman, and shortstop was my position. But for that particular day, I had to play second base, and it was a promotional item, I'm quite sure, between the Hornets and not the Hornets, but the Gastonia Rangers to build up attendance.
Right, George Shen owned both teams.
Absolutely. So George created that opportunity. So, but I couldn't get a hit though. The guy struck me out, but I got my bat on the ball. I tipped quite a few balls, but I struck out twice, and then it rained out, so we never got another opportunity to play again. I think we played 3 innings.
But you got a baseball card out of it, I think.
Got a baseball card out of it. Yes, I did.
The Muggsy Bogues baseball card. That's got to be a keeper.
Absolutely.
Another thing people may not realize about Muggsy Bogues is he coached the WNBA team in Charlotte. I covered them sometimes, the Charlotte Sting. And Muggsy, I can't remember how long you coached, maybe a year or two. What was that like?
Yeah, we coached one full season. And I came in and coached 10 games. And then this following season, I coached the full season. So it was a great experience for me. I really enjoyed working with the ladies. I mean, they were so professional. didn't realize how professional they would be because never have an opportunity to be around that type of caliber players of women. But they came to work each and every day, fundamentally sound, as well as some was very athletic. I think for me, we just didn't have enough time with them. We was taking over a different situation where a lot of negativity was going on. We tried to recreate the culture, which we did. There they are, standing up there right to this day.
Oh, I didn't. Yeah, we're in your memorabilia room, and you've got a picture of the 06 Charlotte Sting.
06 Charlotte Sting, and they dispersed the team in 07.
That's right. Wasn't drawing well enough, basically.
Yeah, that's what they saying. The attendance wasn't drawing, but that was the WNBA. I think it was just Bob Johnson didn't want to have anything to do with the women team anymore, and he was more focused less on the male side of the sports.
And speaking of the male side, the Charlotte Hornets employ a very different sort of point guard, but another famous one now, LaMelo Ball. And I just wonder your thoughts on his game and what he's already done, and also what, since you've coached, what you think he needs to improve to elevate to even the next level.
Oh, I love LaMelo. I just love everything about the kid. His demeanor, his approach to the game. He's a pass-first type of point guard, but at the same time, he understands the opportunity when he needs to score, and he starts to look for more of his offense here of late, which is great because they go as he goes. And him being able to become an all-star early on in his career really speaks value of his commitment to the game. It spills off to the rest of the team. And I love what the Hornets has done and what they looking to do going forward.
We're speaking about rekindling a little bit, Muggsy, and these relationships like George Shen and Dell Curry and many others in your life where you've found someone, and then maybe you've been gone away for a while and come back. But maybe the most important one is your marriage. And it was, I believe, on your 50th birthday, you remarried Kim,
yes.
Right?
Kim and I go back so far back in terms of we grew up in Baltimore. I was in college my second year where she and I met one another. And, we was fortunate enough to have a kid before we got married in Brittany. And then we decided to get married in 89. And we lasted for 7 years, and we got divorced. And we was divorced for 10 years. We both went our separate ways, and we co-parent with our kids. And, we both was in different relationships. Unfortunate for me, I lost the young lady that I was involved with in Sharon Smith. And that was devastating. And Kim did a great job of coming and helping me and consoling me. And because Ty was living with me at the time, and she was helping me, get through those difficult days. And then once we got through those days, and probably a year later, we decided, to start dating one another again. And after that year, it turned into 4 years and 5 years. And, I was a boy back then when I first married her. I felt like I've grown so much, became a man, and having that growth and to be able to admit your faults and understand who you are now, it just made sense for us to get back to rekindle those vows that we once started. And, we're both family oriented. I'm just so grateful and thankful and blessed that I was able to, after 10 years, find her and be able to restart our family.
That's amazing. That's a wonderful story. Do you ever get tired of being Muggsy Bogues and just think, man, I'd like to just go to this restaurant and not be approached by another 5-year-old?
Well, I think it's God's purpose. It's a reason, and I embrace it. And so it's a means of me understanding the reason why it all happened, and not take that for granted.
Yeah. Last thing, Muggsy, I guess we'll close with this. And again, this is Sports Legends of the Carolinas. Muggsy Bogues, our very first guest in this new podcast put together by the Charlotte Observer and McClatchy. But what would you like to leave our listeners with? What is your overall message to them?
Well, just for, people to kind of, embrace who they are, for one, and not try to live their life as someone else want them to, and knowing what your passion is. And if you have it, chase it, chase it, chase it. Don't let anyone dictate what you should do or who you should become. We only get one life, and sometimes some has shortened than others. So nothing is taken for granted. We shouldn't take anything for granted. And I just hope that everybody, just love more than they can hate, or more than they can judge, respect each other, love one another, and then live life to the fullest.
That's Muggsy Bogues. This is Sports Legends of the Carolinas. Muggsy, it's been a real pleasure to speak to you today, and thank you so much for being our very first guest.
Oh, I'm so thankful and humbly knowing that I am the first guest. So again, I truly appreciate you, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
I'm Scott Fowler, and this is Sports Legends of the Carolinas. This show is produced by Jeff Seiner and Cotta Stevens, and the director of audio at McClatchy is Davin Coburn. For lots more content and to continue supporting this kind of work, please visit charlotteobserver.com/sportslegends and consider a digital subscription. Connect with me on Twitter at Scott_Fowler or by email at sfowler@charlotteobserver.com. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you like what you hear, please share with a friend. See you next week.